largely the work has evolved in trying to think about how spaces are interconnected and how exchange within interior space operates. And this project was particularly interesting because of the way circulation operates in the building. And the residency allowed me a period of time to consider that problem in great depth in relation to the specific location.
莎拉·奥本海默的这件作品是在维克斯纳艺术中心为期2年驻地计划的巅峰之作。我有幸能在麻州当代艺术馆看见。
推吧。
这还不好推，不过它这个真的不简单，又重，然后要坚固，然后你看，而且它是玻璃。很有信心对他的作品。
玻璃让学材料的儿子好奇起来，会不会就是我们公司的玻璃？就是要擦拭才通透与反光加。影片中短短的说明这些玻璃和金属的盒状雕塑，由独特的枢轴机构锚定。当游客启动时，他们会以45度角旋转，但真的会是45度角吗 ？No， 不是哦。蓝色的角度一直在改变。对我来说，这就是2条平行线被一线所截。不变的是什么呢？我想是共面哦。再让我们回到影片，继续看下去吧。
Oppenheimer is actually a residency award for 2 years. We usually pick a different artist every year, but this particular circumstance led to 2 years because it was such a long, ongoing, intensive project. There were actually a couple different campus collaborations, which we always love to take advantage of that when we can for these residency projects. Her longest term was with the Department of Engineering, Mechanical Engineering, and they had 2 different professors and a graduate student who all worked with Sarah, and they actually helped her design the pivoting mechanism that is within the piece that actually helps it move. So their input was really instrumental.
My work more generally has a lot of elements that are not visible to the viewer. So when you walk into an exhibition space, one or a viewer will often imagine that the work begins and ends with what they experience or with what they see. And in the case of this project, in the case of, I would say, most of my projects to date, that possible comprehension of, let's say, the total object or the total construction is actually not available to you as a visitor. So the building reinforcement that had to happen here is actually buried within the floor or buried within the wall. In fact, some of the building reinforcement happens in the basement and has very little to do with the visible footprint of the project.
She did do quite a bit of manipulation to this gallery, which I'm not sure people will necessarily notice right away. One thing people who are familiar with our space may know is that we chopped down this wall. We call it the ramp wall, which divides the ramp from the gallery space. And typically this is a high wall, so it allows you to see the piece as you're walking up the ramp, which is something that I can't recall us doing for quite some time. So it actually, you begin your experience with the work even before you get into the galleries. In addition to that, obviously this wall that we've built in the middle, that's actually a 45-degree angle to the ramp wall that she's calling out. And then we built out the west wall as well. There's actually quite a bit of kind of dead space back there that allows us to make this a more regular space. This is normally a wedge shape, and this allows it to be more rectangular, which lets her play off that grid idea.
A lot of the material selections that are in this work and in previous works are taken from standard architectural elements. So you'll notice in this piece that there is a really extended glass box, but because of its thinness, we don't experience it as box-like. And in the cavity between the double panes is a kind of vacuum space. And I was very excited about thinking of a mechanical detail that would activate that space between the 2 glazed panes without actually building some kind of capturing frame element around them. The other thing that I was very excited about materially is the possibility of having a kind of beam system that used rather than an obvious signifier of some kind of structural strength, something that in fact indicates lightness or an impossibility of that structural strength. And I think glass is really exciting as a material in doing that, because we generally associate it with fragility or with a kind of lightness, and in this case it has just an extraordinary mass and heaviness to it. There's something that's really fascinating to me about how people seem to want to touch it, and then they step back and they watch other people engaging and touching it, and then there seem to be relationships that start up between people who are actually not together, that there's a kind of shared condition because of the scale of them and also because of the height. You can't really fully control it as a singular body. It makes me think of when you walk through a revolving door and you lose that sense of your own body because of the way the door makes you move. And I think there's a really beautiful tension around that that's created